So what are the questions? This is sort of an interesting industry.
One thing, just for me personally, I thought was really interesting. So your book on listening and how that's really the key to getting through to anybody. If that's a key to getting through to, what are we listening for exactly? Like, well, what's that primary? Are there a couple key components, or if I'm sitting there I'm assuming I'm trying to learn about you so I can get through to you later, and use the right speech and etc. But am I listening in particular, or is it just showing empathy until they're ready to listen to what I have to say?
Well, if people look up my last name, Goulston, Goulston, in business journals, or biz journals, BIZ journals, I have a syndicated column that goes to 43 cities. Probably doesn't touch West Virginia by at least a state. But and so my next column is about networking, and it'll come out in a little bit. And basically, it's called A Disruptive Approach to Networking, and the subtitle is Be Generous and Multiply. And so the idea, and I'm the chief mentor, and we developed this in a company that I'm connected with in Shanghai and Beijing, and all they do is build collaboration, cooperation, and trust in China between Chinese workers and expats. That's all they do. So Fortune 5 countries bring in 1,000 American managers, and logistics companies outsource the collaboration, cooperation piece to China foundations. And part of what we do, and is our idea is, and here's what you focus on in listening. What's the person's situation? Where are they in the situation? Where do they want to get to? And why that? And then you help them get there by introductions, and you don't think at all about getting anything for yourself ever, and you see it through to the finish. So I'm going to introduce the two of you to some people, and I'm going to nag the three of you. Did you get on each other's podcast? Because I'm going to see it through. And what happens is when you do that with people, the givers and the reciprocators come out of the woodwork, and they have to reciprocate because the generosity makes them crazy. And what happens is it also smokes out the takers and grabbers. So you don't have to keep giving to the takers and grabbers. But I think if the focus is, what's your situation? Where are you in that situation? And usually where people are in a situation in a company is, they're always worried about what can I do to get a promotion and a raise, and what can I do to make sure I don't get a demotion and a pay cut. And so that's what's really on people's minds. Even if they talk about their products, what they really care about is in 6 months, am I going to get a promotion, a raise, or am I going to be looking for a job? And so if you can get people to talk about that, and then where they are, and then do everything you can to help them be successful, really without any focus on yourself. So if you were to say, Mark, you've been such a great guest, what can we do for you? All I would say is follow through if I give you an introduction. Make it work. But does that answer the question? So if you listen for that, and that's what the blog's going to be about, is what we do at China Foundations is, and it's a new approach to networking, is drill down to where people are coming from, where they want to get to. It's also helpful to get them to talk about why is that important? Because when you help people clarify their priorities, they're grateful to you. Because most of us, we run around, we don't even know what our priorities are. And when someone takes the time to say, well, why that? Why is that important or critical for you to do this year? A lot of people are really appreciative that you're helping them think about it. And some people will say, I don't even know why that, because I just thought of something that I should be doing, and I'm not doing it. Well, I'm glad you discovered that. So that's my recommendation. That's how I live my life. It's going pretty well because I don't pursue any business. You guys found me. And I think if you come from this spirit, what happens is people are drawn to you. So does that answer your question, Sean, sort of?
No, absolutely. I think that was perfect. I think you made some really good points here. I think especially because I was going to have a follow-up question, with people that don't seem to take the steps themselves that they need to, but I think you covered that with clarifying why it's important to them. I think a lot of people say something's important to them, and it's really not, and that's why they're not chasing it. I think if you take the time to sit there and go, why is this important, clarify that with them, show them what they're passionate about, then they'll do their part too, and you can help them. Because we've all faced situations where we've tried to help people that just weren't ready to be helped. Yeah. And I think that's a really great extra step that solves that problem.
Yeah, and see, I think that's the value added because, helping people to get clear, they appreciate because everyone's running around. But what I learned from my colleagues at China Foundation, the idea is that you stay with people, if you're helping them, you stay on that because they'll get distracted. So I really do think that a sort of a podcast exchange between you and John Lipsey, the three of you are going to really like each other. But, you'll be able to tap into each other's audience. But I'm also hopeful that, that you'll be able to build some sort of a mutually helpful relationship. You'll see that once you meet John.
I'm sure you're right. Absolutely.
Okay, so Brittany, you talk.
So
what's on your mind?
Yeah, Brittany, what's on your mind?
I'm just honestly just taking it all in. I'm just listening to everything. I don't really have any questions.
Britt gets shy.
I do.
Do you have any tips for getting her to not be so shy?
Are you shy, Brittany?
At first.
Mm-hmm.
When you first meet me, I'm very shy, and then Sean can tell you I sit in here and sing like jingles to commercials and all.
Yeah, I think the first 6 times I met her, she said one word to me, and we could talk about pretty much anything all the time.
Yeah.
But,
Okay. So here's a hack. Here's a shyness hack. And I think we've covered some good things, but I think this is going to be one of the top 4 takeaways for the audience. But I'm just guessing. So I'm painfully shy. I mean, I really am. And years ago, I didn't like to go to any social gatherings. I still don't. I'm a founding member of the Dread Going But Glad I Went Club. And I wake up and I say, why am I going to this? And I just say, just take a shower, get vertical, take a shower, get in the car and go. And it usually turns out okay. But years ago, what happened is I remember we were going to my wife's, 15th or something, high school reunion. And I just whined and nagged. I don't want to go. I don't know anyone. And I think I spoiled the time for her. And then 10 years later, for the next one, I said to myself, I'm going to go and I'm going to surprise her because I'm going to be a good sport. And I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to speak to at least 5 people, and 3 people are going to be very glad they met me. And I have no idea how I'm going to do this. So at the end of the evening, I had met 5 people. 3 of them, they all shook my hand, good to meet you. 3 of them shook my hand with 2 hands and said, really good to meet you. And so afterwards, I thought to myself, what the heck did I do? And so I know you want the answer, Brittany. What I realized is when you ask people what they feel, think, or what they would do, when you get people to talk about a thought, a feeling, and maybe an action, they feel known by you. And which is different than, because a lot of guys will talk about, well, this is what I think, and this is what I do, and this is what I think, and this is what I do. And if that happens with Sean, Brittany has to pull you back from the nerd edge. And so what was happening is if I met someone, I'd say, so I'm so-and-so's husband, did you know her? But the questions I would ask would be, so what do you think? So what do you think of your class now that you're 20 years out of high school? And I'd watch them, and they'd open up, and I'd say, how do you feel about being 20 years older? How fast did it go for you? They said, it went like in a second. I feel like telling them, wait till it's 50 years. And then the action thing, sometimes I might bring up something and say, and I try to stay away from politics, but everyone's talking about it. But I might bring up to someone, if you were Trump, if you were so and so, or I might say, if you were worried about crime in your community and you were the sheriff, what would you do? And so the point is, the content doesn't matter, but when the people shared a thought they had, a feeling they had, and maybe an action they would take, they feel known by you. But that's what I did, and it's like a sailboat tacking between any of those. So does that make sense? Because a lot of times when you're speaking to emotional processors, they'll talk about what they feel, and maybe they'll talk about what they would do or what they did. And then there's analytical processors who will talk about what they think and what they do, but it's tough to get them to talk about what they feel. But I think if you can draw that into the conversation, and it was remarkable. As I said, 3 people shook my hand with 2 hands, but does that make any sense?
That's very intriguing.
Yeah. So is that doable for you, Brittany?
I can totally knock that out.
What?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, you'll text me back about how it backfired.
I'm sorry?
You'll text me back how it backfired.
I'm going to have some good stories out of this.
We like to make bets, so I think what we can do is we'll start going to like networking events and we'll bet. And we'll do those numbers. We'll do 5 and 3 or 10 and 6 or whatever.
We'll still bargain casually.
Because she doesn't like to lose. So I think if we do the 2, if we give her a technique and we put a bet in there, I think we'll come up with some good stories and some good results for you.
Yeah. And one last thing, you're probably noticing I have a traffic light over my shoulder.
Yeah.
Yes. Figured that was going to come up eventually.
Yeah. So the traffic light is a good friend of mine's an NPR host named Marty Nemko. And if you look up Marty Nemko, Nemko, and look up, he's one of the brightest, smartest career coaches I know. So look up anything that he's written. And it's just terrific. So he told me about the traffic light rule for talking too much. And I actually wrote it up at Harvard Business Review as a blog, how to tell if you talk too much. And what he said, because what he told me after my book Just Listen came out, he said, for a guy who wrote a book on listening, you don't listen well. I said, you sound like my wife. Can you give me a break? But anyway, the traffic light rule, he says, unless you're like a guest on a show where you're inviting me to go on, as an expert, whatever. When you're in conversation with people and you're not invited to go on into a monologue, you have 20 minutes before the green light turns to yellow. 20 seconds. And then you have another 20 seconds before the yellow turns to red, and then you've worn out your welcome. And the 40 seconds goes by in about 2 seconds. Because when you're talking, you're getting stuff off your chest, you're feeling so good, and so you fail to notice that they're looking at their watch, they're hinting, they want to get away, they're going like this, and you're not taking a hint. And so the traffic light rule, I think, is a good one, and to be mindful of it when you're having a conversation, and I especially see this at networking events. Now, on the other hand, if you can be that kind of listener that enables people to talk more and more. When people get stuff off their chest, or when people speak from their thoughts, their feelings, and they talk about actions, they really feel good. And they're grateful to you. Geez, it was great talking to you. And that's one of the ways to build relationships. But I think what would be a good thing if you're watching this is, and you can look up Goulston, Goulston, how to know if you talk too much, and it'll come up, Harvard, HBR, and it'll talk about the traffic light rule. But ask the people around you, do I go on too much? Because what will happen is if you're someone who goes on too much because you're really passionate about what you're talking about, Well, like I can see the two of you like deers in the headlights of a car. How do we shut this guy up?
No, I was about to turn to her and ask her to be funny, but I want to let you finish. So.
I can tell the two of you have been kicking yourself each other under the table saying, "How do we get this guy off?"
She can tell you I'm going to cut people off when I'm ready. Like, yeah. You're doing great.
Well, Sean, you've mastered the fine art of sleeping with your eyes open. So anyway, but I think if you ask people, do I go on too long? And what do you think the effect is on other people? And I know I can do it. I mean, I can go on too long, and I get away with it because, I have these interesting stories. But to be honest, I'm at my best when I'm listening. I mean, I'm a guest on your show, so I'm not listening. We're interchanging. But I'm really at my best when I'm listening, and I have to remind myself to do it. And when I go to anything, I say, "Now, Mark, shut up and just listen. You wrote a book on it." But I'm somewhere between a work in progress and a piece of work. So what can I tell you?
I think most of us are. It's okay. It's the way it should be.
Yeah.
So why don't we do a reverse introduction, since you didn't get to introduce yourself at the beginning, and we just went right into it. Where would you like us to send people to keep following up with you?
Well, you could probably help me because I have 410,000 followers on Twitter. I have no idea what to do with it. I have about 7,200 LinkedIn contacts.
Okay.
I have no idea what to do with it, or my Facebook.
That's what we do.
But I'm older than your parents, so I'm pretty youthful, compared to your parents.
Yeah, no, you're doing great. Although my grandmother was very active on Facebook and had a Nintendo before I did. I'm just saying. So you never know.
But there's several places people can visit me. One place is in prison. Because starting in the next month, I'm going to be doing a podcast. Because my first book was called Get Out of Your Own Way. And it's been in the top 10 self-help books at Amazon for the last 10 years. It was published in 1996. And I've gotten over 150 letters from people in prison because the book found its way into prisons and jails. And these are heart-wrenching letters. And so I think it's going to go through, I'm about to do a podcast, a Dear Abby podcast, where I read the letters and answer them in a podcast. It's going to be called Letters from Prison with Dr. Mark. So I was half kidding about that, and I hope I can help these people. But people can visit me on Twitter, because just like Trump, that's probably one of the first things I check. I shouldn't. I don't know what to do with it, but, I see all the tweets. But the other places, you can go to the Goulston group, goulstongroup.com, and you'll see it's about creating Gotta Have It. So that's where a lot of my Steve Jobs stuff will eventually fit. When I get around, I don't visit my website until every other month. But and then I have markgoulston.com, which is my page where I'm a mentor and a speaker. And the last one, which I think is neat, which may be which we may be spreading nationally. I'm sort of a partner in something called the POP Protocol, popprotocol.org, and that stands for Pullover Protocol, and it's what to do at a traffic stop so nobody gets shot. So we're partnering with the LA Sheriff's Department, and we're just completing the public service announcement, and it's basically what youth should do, or anybody should do, when a cop pulls you over at a traffic stop. These are the things you do so that everybody goes home alive. And the public service announcement it's terrific. I mean, you get pulled over, and instead of someone getting agitated, they're calm. And I'll tell you what the protocol is, and you're going to have a lot of editing in this, I'm sure. But the popprotocol.org is SAFE, and SAFE stands for Show Your Hands. And to the African American community, we say show your hands, palms up on the wheel when you get pulled over. because your palms are white and the back of your hands are black. And so if it's dark at night, what all police are trained is to look at sudden movements and wear your hands. So you put the dome light on, it's an act of compliance and cooperation. So show your hands, ask for permission. So officer, my registration is in my back pocket, and also I have this in my glove compartment with a registered handgun. Tell me what to do. Ask permission. F is follow instructions. And then E is exchange respect. Sir, officer, sir, officer. So if you follow those things, show your hands, ask permission, follow instructions, and show respect, it gives you something to do other than just being agitated. Whereas they're looking in the dark, they don't know what it is, they don't know where your hands are. You make a sudden movement for your license, and they're going to pull a gun. So we're very excited about that. And the two founders are African American. I love these guys. And so you can check that out because we're trying to spread that nationally.
Great. Very great project.
Sorry it wasn't concise.
I don't know. I think it was perfect. By the time we get done editing, I think it'll be absolutely perfect. We're going to put some nice segments together. I think this was great, really. I really enjoyed it. I mean, like I said, she'll tell you, we do half an hour. We're over an hour at this point, so that was by choice because we were having a great time.
Well, good. And I am going to introduce you to John Livesey, and I'm going to say get on each other's podcast.
Great. I appreciate that.
And let us know about Saturday, too.
Saturday is the...
If you're trying to avoid the yoga and you want us to come find you somewhere.
Between speed jobs and... we could actually do another podcast because I'm premiering a talk on the book I'm really meant to write, which is Why Cope When You Can Heal and Thrive, How to Recover Completely from Trauma.
Okay. Interesting.
I have an approach to psychological trauma, rape victims, veterans, that helps them not just get past it, but get over it. So I'm premiering it at Wanderlust.
Interesting.
So that'll be on the 11th, yeah.
Okay.
So that could be another show.
Very cool, yeah. No, that's an interesting topic.
Good. So you get back to me and you'll say, good news and bad news. We had to reduce it to 6 minutes, Mark.
I'm pretty sure that definitely won't happen.
Okay. So anything I can do for the two of you? Who can I introduce you to? Because I'm pretty well connected.
I believe you are, from what we've heard. Yeah. I mean, obviously, we'd love to stay in touch. We're going to be in touch about the summit anyway. How about we go through this, and then maybe if we see a Saturday, we'll have a conversation, or if not, we'll follow up and have a conversation down the road. But I'd love to be connected, with your friend that you think we should be connected with, and then we can go from there if that works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. What might be good is I'm sending articles to Working Nation, so I've sent them 3. They're going to wait till they get 4 from me, and it's all about being afraid you can't learn new things, what to do if your spouse is bunkered, and won't look for a job. So when they start posting those, given the depressed community you're in, I'll send them to you, and it might make sense to do something about that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, because we actually want to follow this up with a more regional summit, specifically addressing that, to show people that there is success here, that there are people finding ways to make it happen, that it's not all dependent on resources and coal prices and everything else. So I think that could fit in really well.
I'll give you an exercise that's you'd have to fit it in, but it's a great interactive exercise. Because if you're trying to get people unbunkered, it's less important what you tell them than what you get them to tell you to get stuff off their chest.
Okay.
Because when you're giving them instructions, they go, Yeah, easy for you to say, you have a job, you have an income, you've had a way to make it work, and they'll be polite, and then they'll just leave and they won't do anything. So a great exercise that I've used is, pair up with the person next to you, look in their eyes, and this will be good. You can try it. This will be good. You like it. Look in their eyes.
Come on, we're doing this.
Love it. You're going to love this. Okay. So look into each other's eyes. And so, Sean, say to Brittany, tell me one thing you want me to know about you.
Brittany, tell me one thing you want me to know about you.
One thing that you already don't know?
Something new? Is it something new? Is that what we're looking for?
It can be kind of, your ambition, what's important to you. Go on. But look at him and tell him.
Something important to me. I think the most important thing in my life is my son.
Okay.
I think you might know that, yeah.
I probably could have guessed that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now ask Sean the same thing.
Sean.
Ask him to tell you something that he wants you to know about him.
I probably think that.
I know, that's the thing. I know, that's the thing, because we know each other so well. Like,
yeah, what happens in that situation? Because I mean, honestly, like we don't hold anything back.
Yeah.
She's probably the one person I tell everything to.
Okay, but here's the hooker.
Okay.
Look into her eyes
Uh-huh.
and say, tell me something you don't want me to know about you.
Ooh. Brittany, tell me something you don't want me to know about you.
Maybe one thing I always find difficult to talk about is spiritual doubt and my battles with religion.
Interesting. Okay.
And could you feel more real when you just said that, Brittany? That was...
Yeah.
And so ask Sean the same thing.
What's something you don't want me to know about you?
Probably how much of a failure I feel like because of how I've let myself go since I moved here. Like that bothers me pretty much ongoing even when I play it off.
How much of a what? I didn't hear.
I've gained about 50 pounds since I moved to West Virginia. So I play it off like it's not a big deal, but it's a pretty big issue.
So the key is this is how you connect people. So it's a double thing, and they'll say what, and I'll send you a podcast because the people that are going to produce the podcast, the prison thing, they had me on the show, and they have a big following. They have something called the Great Love Debate, whatever that is, but they have a big following. And they were on Podcast One, which is a big podcast company, and so they're going out on their own. And so they had me on the show, and I'll send you a link to it. And it was a show. It's mainly women watch it, but this one was all about men. So I asked the host, and there was another couple guests, those questions, and they just opened up. And I went first. I mean, I said I'll go first because I wanted to be a role model. So what I want you to know about me is it's really important to me to get the world to listen to each other and care about each other. The anger, the fear, the pain in the world, I can't tune it out. So that's really important for you to know about me. What I don't want you to know about me is I'm a show-off. And sometimes I name drop. I can get away with it because these are pretty good names to drop. But after I do it, I say to myself, could you have been a little more insecure? And the best part of me is when I'm in the listening mode. And I don't like being a show-off. And so I primed the pump, and then they went, and it just opened up. They got so much feedback. So you have to listen to the show. The host, opened up about stuff. But because of that, they said, we got to do a podcast, we're in the middle of it. So, but I'm sharing that because I think when you can get people to connect, especially in a depressed community, and you need to go first, and when you say what I don't want you to know, you may want to do something, I don't know, that they can sort of, well, you can talk about, I feel like a failure or whatever, but about the weight. But what you really want them to do and look at each other is for them to say, what I don't want you to know is I'm scared. I'm scared I'll never work again. I'm scared that I can't take care of my family. And what will happen is, whatever the group is, they'll start crying. I mean, what will happen is it will flex into caring about each other. So just keep that in the back of your mind as an exercise. You can use it at your church group. You can use it whatever. But it's, I found it to be a real neat exercise. Okay, you've had enough of me, so we'll stop here. I'll send you some links. I'll send you a link to that podcast where I asked this, and because the host listened to it about 2 weeks later, because he does a lot of podcasts, and he said it blew him away how he, because he's private when you just open up. So, but I think that's good radio, and people want to hear that because they mostly hear people selling stuff.
Yeah, well, they want to see the vulnerable side of you, like we talked about a little earlier. I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
That's how people
Okay, so happy editing.
That'll be great. Really, this was great. Thank you very much. Again, in all honesty, I would have cut it off if I wanted to. In fact, if I knew someone would be at 4 and I got to pick somebody up on the way, I'd probably still keep talking to you. So this has been really great.
Look, we'll continue it. And in fact, I mentor about 30 people around the world because it keeps me relevant. If you want to consider me a mentor, we can sort of do that. And here's the key to mentoring. There's another book I was thinking of writing called Tether Love, The Heart of Mentoring, because what mentors do, which is different than coaches and teachers, and I've been fortunate to have 6 mentors. They've all died. And when I'm beating up on myself, I'll think about them, and they'll get me to stop beating up on myself. But what a mentor does is believes in you, sees value in you, sees goodness in you, and they tether you to your future. They see a future for you, even if you or they can't define it. But underneath the tethering you towards your future, they ground it with loving you. So I call it tether love, because that's what all those mentors did to me. And my last mentor was the top expert on leadership in the world, a guy named Warren Bennis. And a year after he died, I had a bad day, and I realized that I was missing him. And what I wrote about in the blog was I thought it was his respect for me that helped me. But what I realized was that he enjoyed me and he loved me. So when I saw him, not what we were going to do, put a smile on his face, which healed something because I wasn't able to do that really, my own dad. And so I might go in that direction, but that's the kind of mentor I'm trying to be, because Warren was that to Howard Schultz at Starbucks, David Gergen, Jack Welch, and he was beloved. He wasn't just respected, he was beloved. But I think he had tether love. So, but I think the world needs that, because the world is becoming untethered, unglued, ripped apart. Yeah.
More connected than ever, less connected than ever.
Okay, so happy post-production.
Thank you
Thank you for taking time to talk to us.